Happy Friday to you. Welcome to Week 2 Power Rankings. I'm super excited to jump into what we're going to be talking about later with ranking all 32 teams in the NFL. But before we jump into that, I wanted to cover two things real quick. First is a storyline that I've been following for a little over a year alongside my dad, and that is actually going on at Ohio State right now, and that is the revivals that have been happening here. It's been incredible seeing it. Last year was led by Travion Henderson, and I believe, what was his name? JT Tuimoloau. They were both crucial in leading these revivals where you're seeing thousands of kids getting baptized. They were sponsoring it, stepping up in a big way, and it's huge. I mean, that's big name football players, like nationally known football players who were openly sharing the gospel, sharing their faith, and it was bearing fruit. You know, I put up on my Facebook this past week about Emeka Egbuka wearing a shirt that says "I love Jesus" or "Jesus loves you" or Jesus won. He was wearing one of those kind of shirts walking into the first game of the season of his NFL career, and they balled out. I mean, he played so good, and it's really cool what's going on at Ohio State with the culture. It's hard to admit that being an Alabama fan. Believe me, I can be salty about Ohio State at times, but I can't hate on what God's doing, what his kingdom is doing on that campus. So this year, I saw a video, and it was Caleb Downs, and it was funny because he had such a seriousness to him where he snaps to the camera and he's like, it's revival season, or he said something like that. And, you know, then there's more videos of kids getting baptized. Caleb Downs is leading it. I believe Sonny, one of the linebackers for Ohio State, is a big part of this too. And it's just incredible to see. It's so cool to see athletes who are well-known that are confidently sharing the gospel for the sake of their Lord and Savior. You can't hate on it no matter what team it's coming from. So just wanted to shout them out. That's been really, really awesome to see. Super excited to see what God keeps doing. I pray that this starts making its way round and round to every single college campus, that all athletes of faith would start seeing how they can not just honor the Lord on the field, but to take it off the field and to be leading revivals, to be sharing their testimonies. You can't put into words how awesome that is. So I'm super excited. But yeah, with that being said, let's recap Thursday night football. Last night's game, we had the Washington Commanders go into Green Bay. And I think my score prediction when I talked about this game, I believe I said 33-17. I was pretty darn close. I may have said 14. Final score was 27-18. The Packers take the win. And one of the big things I had talked about with this game is if Green Bay can beat the Lions, who are the number one seed in the NFC last year, and then beat the other team that was in the NFC Championship from the year before, I mean, they are a powerhouse. I want you guys to know I made my power rankings before last night's game, so this is kind of like a little bit of an asterisk there, but you're going to see my power rankings later. I feel like I'm onto something. I feel like I did a good job this week. So Jaden Daniels had a hard time getting going. That Packers defense is just nasty. Their defensive backs, they had one guy who I believe he had 4 or 5. Keyshawn Nixon had 5 pass deflections. Devontae Wyatt, who's their defensive lineman, had 2. Xavier McKinney had 1. They had 8 as a whole, as a team. Their defense, their front was getting after those guys. It just looked like Washington could not keep up. The Packers put up 4 sacks. They were just suffocating the Commanders. Zach Ertz still had a good game at 6 catches, 64 yards, and a touchdown. Terry McLaurin only had 5 catches for 48. Debo had 7 for 44 and a touchdown. They could not get the run game going. They only got 51 yards on the ground, averaged 2.7 yards per carry. It was a hard night for the Commanders. I will give them a lot of credit for how hard they fought on offense. They made a push to come back late, but they had a hard time hanging with this Packers team. This Packers team is nasty. It's really nasty. They look like a real deal team. I did want to highlight one guy on the Commanders who I have a lot of respect for and I think is an incredible guy, is Bobby Wagner. This dude is 35, 36 years old, and he's still getting 11 tackles. Like, he's an animal, man. He's all over the place. But yeah, so to highlight what the Packers were doing, man, Jordan Love had some throws where if he was a yard more dialed in, my goodness, you're talking about a game. He probably would have had 350 yards, maybe 4 touchdowns, and then probably a 70% completion rate. I mean, he takes shots and he's always just a yard or two off. Most of the time. Most of the time he does hit his throws, but sometimes he's just a yard or two off from hitting a big play. And you hope you can see him just dial in that accuracy a little bit more as the season progresses. You know, this is only game 2. That's the other thing, is trying to do a power rankings after 1 week of football is kind of unfair to a lot of teams and a lot of fan bases. So take that in jest as we get into the power rankings. But Jordan Love played really, really solid. Josh Jacobs had a pretty decent night on the ground. They had a lot of guys that had to step up. Sad news hearing about Romeo Doubs, broken collarbone. Never want to hear that. He could be out for a couple months, might not come back till later on in the year. I think they'll get on fine without him just because of how talented they are on offense, but you definitely hate to see him leaving the game. Also for the Commanders, Austin Eckler, torn Achilles. It's one of those injuries now, you know it right when you see it. It's so weird the uptick that's happened in this injury, but we've kind of gotten accustomed to knowing what it is right when we see it. When you see someone playing on that back heel and then they fall, you just kind of know, unfortunately. I think the big standout key player for the Packers was Tucker Kraft, man. 6 catches, 124 yards, and a touchdown. And that guy's a tight end. Had a 57-yard reception. He was seemed like he was always open. He was playing with some fire and ferociousness. He just looked great. He looked like an awesome tight end, picking up where he was, picking up off where he was last year. You know, he was not talked about probably as much as he should have been, and I think he made a pretty big statement last night with a great win. So shout out to the Packers. They're starting off 2-0. The Commanders are 1-1. But with that being said, let's jump into these power rankings. So I won't lie. At the 32 spot, I changed it now. At the 32 spot, I severely slandered a team, and I will talk about that because I did have to go back and reorder them because I don't feel I was being totally fair. So at 32, starting off the list, I have the Panthers. It was a really bad outing from Bryce Young. Just didn't look composed, looked worried, scared, and there's even like some of the sad clips that you're seeing of like he was watching the hat game on the Jumbotron where you're trying to follow where the ball is under all the hats or the helmets, whatever. In the middle of a timeout, it's like, what are you doing, man? Like, get in the huddle, lead your team. So you hope that he can come along and play with that sample size that we saw at the end of last year where he looked really good. I mean, he gave the Eagles a fit. I really thought we were about to lose to the Panthers last year when we played them, and Bryce just looked composed, but just hasn't gotten there yet. On the bright side, Teteroa McMillan, their first-round pick, looks like a really good wide receiver one. If Bryce would have hit more throws, he definitely would have had over 100 receiving yards, probably a touchdown. Looked really good. Their defense did a good job holding up Brian Thomas. You know, he only had 1 catch for 25, 30 yards, I think, which is saying something. And I think J.C. Horn probably was covering him, and he's a solid corner, so that could be part of it. However, they gave up 378 yards elsewhere, and they allowed 200 rushing yards. This was a team last year who was without Derek Brown, big defensive tackle, has an impact kind of like Dexter Lawrence or Jalen Carter would have. So you're thinking, okay, he comes back healthy, they'll have a solid run defense, and they just got run all over. So it was a surprising game for sure to see their defense give up that much production. But we'll see how they carry on into week 2. So at 31, I have the Giants. My first note is, why is Russell Wilson the quarterback? I don't really get it. I think you know what you're getting with Russ. You're getting dink and dunk passes. You're getting an average of 4 to 5 yards a throw. He's just not a guy that's going to really lead your team. And I understand if you don't want to trot Jackson Dart out there just for him to get killed and his confidence be at an all-time low. But can you at least start Jameis Winston so we can enjoy the game? You know what I mean? Like, if Jameis is in there, then we can all enjoy the game. But if Russell's in there, it's just kind of like you just don't really have a high expectation. I think everybody saw the frustration of Malik Neighbors, their wide receiver one, just looks so frustrated. I think another big part is you're kind of expecting the Giants' defense to be a little more solid. They have, on paper, an incredible defensive line. They've got a lot of talent up there. And Brian Burns had a good game, but nobody else did anything. Nobody on their defense seemed to really care. They gave up 432 yards to a Commanders team that is very talented, but you expect an NFC East rival. You expect a bit more of a fight. So it was a tough game for the Giants. Definitely a tough performance. And by the way, with the power rankings, I'm definitely a stats guy. I'm not really like overly analytics guy. I think that there's a huge thing to how a football game feels. if you necessarily don't have the yards or the efficiency, but you've got that feeling about like, yeah, we need to go for a fourth down. I'm one of those guys where I'm like, go for it. Don't look at the analytics. Like if you know you should go for it, then go for it. But yeah, number 30, we got the Titans. They played an elite defense, maybe the best defense in the NFL. The Packers could definitely be vying for that spot. I'm still not giving up hope on the Eagles yet. Having Jalen Carter back, we'll see how we do defensively this Sunday. I'm itching for some Eagles football, man. I'm so excited to play the Chiefs. But anyway, so they played an elite defense, but their offensive line was constantly overloaded. I mean, it was bad. I talked about it on Wednesday. There was a sack on Cam Ward where there was 8 Broncos in the backfield. 8 Broncos in the backfield. They just were getting constantly overloaded. The Broncos have an incredible secondary. So again, a lot of this, it's also based on competition. How I did the power rankings. The Titans at 30, I know that's obviously a very low spot, but there were things like Jerry Jeudy had a lot of drops there at the end of the game. He could have had quite a few more yards. The Titans could have looked like they were putting up a lot more fight, but I mean, when you're dropping the ball and your offensive line can't block for you, Cam Ward didn't look bad, but you can't produce when your offensive line that's bad. It's the same thing with Joe Burrow and the Bengals. I mean, we know how talented that guy is. Put up 144 yards on Sunday because his offensive line couldn't stop a wet paper towel. It was bad. It was really bad. So the Titans, their offensive line was really struggling, and we had questions about the Titans wide receiver room. Obviously, Calvin Ridley is a long-term veteran. They do have Elikayo Manor, who is a solid rookie. I think he was very underrated. Went in the 3rd or 4th round out of Stanford. He could definitely have some production, but there's just a lot of questions about who they're going to throw to. And the Broncos offense didn't really look that great for most of the game, but they still allowed 317 yards. The Titans did. So got a lot of questions for them going into week 2. Number 29, the Saints. They had decent production, but they could only put up 13 points. Spencer Rattler looked better than he did most of last year. Had a pretty solid performance for the most part, but you got Alvin Kamara. It feels like this Saints team is almost kind of like a copy and paste every year. We got Rashee Rice. We know he's a deep ball guy. They didn't take any deep ball shots. I don't know. The Saints just look a little flat. So hopefully they can find some momentum. Maybe they'll figure out if Spencer Rattler's their guy or if it's Tyler Shuck, and maybe he lights up the scoreboard. Who knows? At number 28, this was the team that I was heavily slandering because I was just so uninspired with the way that they played. I got Miami. I put Miami at 32nd because I get that they're star power and all that, but star power doesn't matter if you're not even showing up to the game. I mean, I'm a huge Tua fan. I love Tua. All I want to do is see that guy succeed. He's one of my favorite players in the NFL, and he just looked so shaky, so rocked. He did not look like he could confidently step up in the pocket and make a throw against the Colts. And again, we don't really know what the Colts are. The Colts are kind of a confusing team at this point. Everyone's expecting them to be a basement team, and then if you're going by the stats, they were probably the number 1 team this week. They were 3rd in offensive production and 4th in defense. And I mean, they put up 33 points. So yeah, don't know what the Colts are, but Miami looked like a shell of themselves. They gave up 418 yards. They had 3 turnovers, only put up 211 yards of offense, but you expect them to improve. I had to put them up to 28 and kind of flip things around because they've got the star power. We don't know what's going to happen with Tyreek Hill. Tua could hit a hot streak the way that, we're used to seeing him play. Jalen Waddle is still a very talented wide receiver. They've got what should be a great defensive line. So had to put them up a little higher just because you expect that they're going to turn things around. 27, we got the Browns. There's just not really a whole lot of offensive talent. Like Joe Flacco really did have a pretty darn good game. Jerry Jeudy dropped the ball way too many times. And the 2 picks that Joe Flacco threw, they were both tipped balls. It wasn't like he had this terrible throw or threw it right to the defense or right over top of a guy to a safety. I mean, it was right in the hands, bounces off, and someone gets a pick. I feel like it's kind of unfair almost that those go on a quarterback. Like, I get if it's a really high ball and it gets tipped, but it kind of sucks if you hit the guy right in their hands and then you get credited with a pick because they didn't catch the ball. Really, the only reason that they're up at 27 is just because Myles Garrett is just incredible. May still be the best edge rusher in the league. I know that's very debated now, and people talk about Micah. Personally, I think Myles Garrett is he is something else, man. At 26, we got the Patriots. They just looked very weak They looked very, very weak. You're expecting a Mike Vrabel team to be gritty and one of those teams that's going to really punch you in the mouth. But I'm really questioning the release of Jabril Peppers and Kyle Duggar. Those were two guys that were really key pieces on this Patriots team for the last couple of years. So I don't know, maybe Vrabel thought that they were a problem to the culture and that's why he cut them. But I don't know. In my mind, I thought that those would be like the two guys that he would mesh really well with when he was making his defense to be tough and gritty and in your face. So, yeah, Drake May is talented. Keyshawn Boutte looked like he could be a good wide receiver product. But yeah, they looked really flat and they couldn't really score the ball. So it was an interesting game from the Patriots. We'll see how they continue on. 25, we've got the Bears, another team with a lot of talent. They just couldn't finish the game. Their defense was weak. They were thin at corner. They had some injuries and all that kind of stuff, but they did have the pick six early on, but they just totally fell flat, and this is week 2 power rankings. We're going off of one game of football. I think the Bears are going to rise quite a few spots, but as of right now, they didn't step up to the plate, didn't step up to the occasion. Caleb looked pretty good, looked good for the most part. But again, with all the talent that they have on offense and defense, they should be producing in a much bigger way. 24, we got the Seahawks. I think that this team will rise when they actually get Darnold going more. I think when they give him his play action, bootleg rollout passes, let him take deep shots. He had a great chemistry with Jackson Smith and Jigba already, which is great to see if you're a Seahawks fan. But you're questioning the coaches of why they didn't do more of what was working, because there were some big highlight plays that the Seahawks had on Sunday, and it was like they didn't want to try and keep going to that well. I didn't know if they were worried it would kind of exhaust it, but yeah, it was interesting. And then with the Seahawks defense, they gave up close to 400 yards. And yeah, they forced 2 turnovers, right? But the thing with the turnovers is it wasn't like they were good plays. Like there was some pressure on Brock. I'll give them that. There was pressure on Brock, but Brock threw up those throws that your rookie quarterback throws, like those moon balls to try and just get it away, that make you freak out because you're like, what are you doing? Don't do that, because you're expecting it to get picked, and that's exactly what happened. He had 2 of those that got picked off, and they were just really bad throws. So it wasn't like the Seahawks, I don't know, I just don't feel like the Seahawks really had much of a fight in the passing game as well. Even on that late touchdown by Jake Tonjes for the 49ers, Tariq Woolen should have picked that ball off. He just walked to the side and almost, it was like he allowed him to catch it. So yeah, just some questions about the Seahawks defense. And, the 49ers are a good team, but are they really that good? That's my question. Are they really that good? 23, we got the Cardinals. I put them here. Yeah, they got a win, but they didn't play great competition. Marvin Harrison Jr. had a pretty good game. Trey McBride is really talented. Kyler, he is such a wild card. You don't know if he's going to look like a potential, top 10 quarterback, or if he's going to look like the 20th best quarterback in the league. It's just, you never know what you're getting with Kyler. So they played okay, but they were only playing the Saints. I don't want to give them too much credit for playing the Saints. But yeah, I'm curious what their defense will actually do against a really good offensive opponent. I think that that's definitely a question to be asked, is how can they hold back a team like the Packers? How can they hold back a team like the Bucs or the Falcons? So I'm curious to see that. In the NFC West, it'll be interesting when they play the Rams. I think the Seahawks could probably do some work on their defense as well. I don't know if I have a whole lot of faith in their defense, but we'll see how they continue on. 22, we got the Jags. They got a great, solid Week 1 win. But my thing is kind of like, the Panthers just aren't really that great of a competitor, so I don't want to give them too much credit. Again, the running game did look good. It looked like they were definitely trying to get the ball to Travis Hunter, but it didn't feel like Travis Hunter was able to create a lot of plays. It felt like it was a lot of screens and just let him do his thing. And it's his first game. He's getting comfortable, getting settled in there, so I get it. But curious to see how Travis Hunter develops in this whole thing. Brian Thomas Jr. is a great wide receiver. Then you just have Trevor Lawrence, where we still kind of don't know exactly who he's going to be as a quarterback for his career. Right now, we've seen the glimpses, but haven't seen the consistency. So they look like they could be good, but one thing to highlight is they have a great rushing attack. Their defensive line is ferocious. Definitely keep your eye on them whenever you're watching a game. 21, we got the Raiders. They had a solid Week 1 win. Again, with competition, though, the Patriots aren't that great. so I don't want to give them too much credit. However, Geno really did ball out, man. I don't know if you guys watched that game or at least the highlights, but Geno actually looked like a really great quarterback. The quarterback that we saw in Seattle had his career revived. I haven't watched a whole lot of Geno Smith until I was watching the highlights for this game, but man, his mechanics are really darn solid. I really like his mechanics throwing the ball. He's got a clean release, looks good when he's throwing. Ashton Jeanty didn't really get going, which is kind of not concerning. Again, week one, not concerning, but you were definitely hoping that Ashton Jeanty could get going. So yeah, we'll see how they can develop targets outside of Brock Bowers as well. You know, that I was talking about on Wednesday. They did do a lot of 2 tight end, which was interesting, but I'm curious to see how they can do outside of Brock Bowers in the passing game. But Geno looks good. Defensive line should be good. Just don't really know all else of what you have there. At number 20, I have the Texans. Now, this is a team that has been very good in the past and just did not look like themselves. CJ looked rushed. The offensive line looked very weak. They couldn't really put up any points. It was one of those games where Nico wasn't there. Nico Collins, their wide receiver, one. It just didn't feel like they had any real weapons on offense. Their defense looked good. I mean, they played a very talented Rams team, and they looked good, but their offense just looked non-existent, you know? And so curious to see how they can develop and continue growing. But right now I got them at 20. I don't know. Yeah, just not too high on the Texans right now, but I think they can turn it around. Now this team, at number 19, from what I saw in week 1, I am very excited about this team. I think a lot of people might find this as a joke or whatever, but this is my power rankings. I can do what I want. 19, I got the Jets. I am really high on their rushing attack in Justin Fields. I have always been a believer in Justin Fields. I've just never been a real big believer in Chicago. So when he was there, I didn't feel like a lot of it was on him. Like, yeah, you know, he holds the ball too long and gets sacked and all that, but who did he really have blocking for him? You know, and as a quarterback, you do have to figure a lot of that stuff out of how you make the production happen. But I've always liked Justin Fields. Also a man of God. Says he's addicted to reading his Bible. How can you not root for the guy, you know? But all joking aside, he looked so good on the ground. Breece Hall, I mean, they got running back by committee. I mean, when Justin Fields is out there, you kind of have to see him as an incredible running back who also has a great throw in the ball. So I think they have a really cool defense. I love what Aaron Glenn has done with this team in terms of discipline. They looked a lot different from what they have in years past under Robert Saleh. So I got a lot of respect for Aaron Glenn. Love what the Jets can be. I've got them as a real sleeper team. They put up a lot of yards on a very talented Steelers defense, and their offense looked pretty darn good. Just couldn't beat a very good Steelers team. But as they gel and the chemistry grows, watch out for the Jets, man. They just might snag a spot in the playoffs. We'll see. Now with the Colts, got them at number 18. I think this was a team that a lot of people might put a lot lower, but what I saw was this. Daniel Jones could possibly be in the perfect coaching situation for him as a player. Shane Steichen worked with Jalen Hurts and helped him to have an incredible year. I think Daniel Jones is kind of a similar player, you know? He's got great rushing prowess. You're not necessarily looking at him to have 40 throws a game, but he'll throw the ball when he needs to, and he does a pretty darn good job at it when you ask him to. And the rushing attack was just incredible. One of the reasons I have the Colts a lot higher as well is their defense looks like they could be a really solid unit, which I don't think a lot of people are expecting. You know, Leatu Latu had the interception. They've got DeForest Buckner. They have some pieces that really could. I think they still have Zaire Franklin, so they have some talent on defense that actually could help them hold their own. But I mean, Tyler Warren and Jonathan Taylor, they looked so good in that game. I think they had a great game plan to just get those guys the ball. Get the ball to Tyler Warren. You know, tight end running jet sweeps is wild, but he does it well. Keep throwing the screen passes to Jonathan Taylor. He looked great. So I'm excited about the Colts. And, you know, maybe they'll be a fun Cinderella team to watch, but we'll see how it goes. Number 17, I have the Falcons. I hated putting them at 17. I'm a lot higher on this team, but I just didn't feel like I could put them above another team because they didn't win. But I do believe that they will prove to be one of the best offenses in the NFC. They just need a little more volume to show that. You got Drake London, Kyle Pitts, Ray McLeod, Bijan Robinson, Michael Penix. Their offensive line looks pretty solid. I know they're missing someone on their offensive line due to injury. but they really do seem like they could be an incredible offense. Their defense, they did get beat by a very solid Bucs offense, so you're hoping that they can figure things out. But I'm very high on the Falcons personally. I think that they're gonna have a really solid season. So putting them at 17 sucks, but you're also talking about the fact that if Younghoe Koo hits that overtime sending kick, and if he would have hit that kick earlier in the game, they would have beat this Bucs team, but didn't get it done. The NFL is a big world of ifs, and that's just not what reality is. So 16, I got the Cowboys. They did play a good game against, the reigning Super Bowl champions, but they had some really bad drops. And one of the things from watching that game, they were very fortunate off of penalty yards. My Eagles gave up way too many yards in penalties, and the Cowboys were very fortunate off that. They had some of the best field position probably any team saw in week 1, which makes it a lot easier to put up better numbers and have a closer game. So put them at 16. Obviously they don't have Micah now. That's been the only storyline it feels like we've been hearing about for the last couple weeks. So we'll see how they continue on, but Dak looks really good. That's kind of the main thing for this team is your quarterback looks awesome. And see how everything else shakes out. 15, I got the Bengals. Where were the superstars? And against Cleveland. I think it was T. Higgins was the leading receiver, and he had 34 yards. Jamar Chase was not really involved. T. Higgins wasn't involved. Joe Burrow threw for 144. I talked about this a lot on Wednesday. It's just hard to put this team any higher when they look that flat against Cleveland. I'm curious to see. We're kind of accustomed to the Bengals having slow starts, then they catch on fire. So we'll see where they go from here. We'll see. Number 14, I have the 49ers. One of the big knocks to this team is just the injuries to Brock Purdy and now George Kittle. Just curious to see how they do from here. They do have Mac Jones as their backup quarterback who has some experience, but, Mac Jones probably isn't going to get them nearly as many wins as Brock Purdy would. So we'll see how he does. But love Ricky Pearsall. He looked awesome, man. He was getting open. He looked like a strong wide receiver for them. Great target. But the main thing is it looks like Christian McCaffrey is just going to have to put up 250 yards a game from scrimmage if they want a chance to really win some games. Number 13, I got the Lions. They just kind of looked lifeless, St. Brown wasn't heavily involved. J-Mo, I don't even know if I remember seeing J-Mo really make a play this game. Jahmyr Gibbs could not get the ground game going. He had 10 catches for 30 yards as well. So definitely worrisome for week 1 about how this offensive line and an offense without Ben Johnson will really be able to perform. Again, I said this on Wednesday. Jared Goff, I think, looked good, but just it seemed like he didn't really have anybody to throw to. He did have a great throw to Isaac Tesla for a touchdown. If you guys didn't see that, man, it was back of the end zone. This rookie goes up one hand, brings it in. It was solid. It was a great play for sure. So we'll see how the Lions are. We know that this is I think that they played an incredibly strong team week 1 in the Packers. But I mean, this was the number 1 seed in the NFC last year, and it looked like far from that. Number 12, I got the Vikings. They had a great comeback win, and they have lots of potential. I'm curious to see how their defensive prowess, like how they continue on defense as they go on throughout the year. But great comeback win. J.J. McCarthy started off really slow, had the bad pick 6. Yeah, I think a lot of Vikings fans were probably getting headaches and, oh my gosh, like why did we let Sam Darnold walk? Because we love to overreact week 1. But J.J. McCarthy had an incredible fourth quarter, 2 passing touchdowns and a rushing touchdown in the fourth. I even was talking with my wife about that yesterday. I was telling her my power rankings, and I was saying, they scored 21 points in the fourth quarter. She looked at me, she goes, 21 points in the fourth quarter? How? And I was like, they just figured it out, I guess. But yeah, so the Vikings, they have so much talent on their offense. They do still have Jonathan Grenard on their defense. I think that this is still going to be a better team, but just need to prove more. Again, it's week 2. We're going into week 2. Every team has so much more to prove to really get a solid grip on who actually are the best teams. At number 11, I've got the Steelers. I personally have a lot of faith in this team. Aaron Rodgers looked so sharp. That offense looked like they were going to produce, and I think a lot of people had questions, but I'm trying to remember who their wide receiver number 2 was for this game, but he put up a lot of production. DK is just a ridiculously talented guy, just so big, so strong, so fast, incredible athlete. I do think that they'll get the run game figured out for sure. But the real question is the rushing defense. Was very surprising to see how many yards they gave up again against the Jets, which I do credit them as being a good rushing offense. But, that Steelers team has a lot of talent to give up that much yardage. So we'll see how the Steelers play out, but they got a hard fought win. They came out with the W. That's the most important thing. Number 10, I got the Broncos. I love their defense. I think their defense is definitely vying for the number one defense in the league. Just incredibly talented at every level. I do hope their offense can come along a bit better, and Bo can pick up where he ended off last season. Again, he started off this game really hot, threw a 50-50 ball pick, and it looked like he kind of got a little shaken after that when the confidence was a little low. But yeah, I think that this is definitely a team that can still make some noise for sure. I would not write off the Broncos yet. They did get an ugly win against the Titans, but again, this is week 2. Just breathe. Week 2. Just breathe. Number 9, I got the Chiefs. This is a far fall, especially because their defense just wasn't very present. Their offense looked frustrated. Now they're thin at receiver with Xavier Worthy's injury. And what is his name? Rashee Rice? No, that's the Saints guy. Is it right? You know who I'm talking about. The wide receiver one for Kansas City. He's suspended for another 3 games, I think, so they're going to be without a lot of offensive firepower. It looked like the entire game was on pat. This is the Chiefs. We know that they're still going to get wins. If the Chiefs go something like, 4-13, that would be shocking. But I don't think we live in a world where that's going to happen. At number 8, we got the Rams. I really do think that this could be a Super Bowl team as long as Matthew Stafford stays healthy. Devontae Adams and Puka Nacua looked so good. Kyren Williams is a great running back. You're hoping to see the running game get going a little more. And they've got so many weapons on defense, and I love how homegrown this team is on defense too. Definitely watch out for the Rams. Got them at number 8. 7, the Bucks. I really love the Bucks. Again, this is my power rankings. I can put the Bucks higher than the Rams if I want to. I love Baker. I love the leadership, the prowess that he has in leading this Bucks team. You can tell all the guys on his team love him. I think they have the best wide receiver room in the league. Emeka Egbuka proved himself to be an incredible wide receiver. They didn't even get Chris Godwin back yet, and he's an incredible wide receiver. Mike Evans is still producing. Their offense is pretty darn scary, and you would expect Bucky Irving to definitely get the running game going. It seems like a lot of teams struggle to establish the running game for the most part in week 1. There's a lot of teams where if they figure out the running game, then they're gonna be scary. Yeah, and again, I said I believe that the Bucs will be one of the best offenses in the NFC, and I'm sticking to that for now. I really think that this could be a very talented team, and their defense bent but didn't break. They had a good win against what I believe is a talented Falcons team. At number 6, I got the Chargers. Great win, week 1 in Brazil against the Kansas City Chiefs. Division rival, kind of the big brother, and they looked great in all assets, really. I think that their defensive line looked good. I do think, Hollywood Brown did have a lot of catches, but they won the game. And again, they had the Chiefs offense looking pretty frustrated for most of the game. Justin Herbert looked great. Again, another team that didn't really get the running game going a whole lot in week 1, but this Chargers team, again, they just got to overcome the past demons. That's one of the last notes I have on them, is they got to overcome the past demons to really prove themselves. Number 5, got the Commanders. Again, I made this before last night. I obviously have to see how the other games play out, but I have them at number 5. And I put them, honestly, just not because of higher competition. We know what this team was from last year. They brought in Debo this year. You're expecting them to be the exact same. Obviously, last night taking a loss to the Packers. But I think we have to have grace for teams that play the Packers. They're a very, very good defense. So I think we'll see how the Commanders continue on in their season, but played an incredible team last night on Thursday night. So yeah, we'll see how they can continue on. Number 4, I got the Ravens. They had an incredible offensive performance, but they choked. And they choked bad. Their running game is incredible. Zay Flowers looked good. Lamar looked good. Offensive line is good. Defense was good for most of the game, and they are playing the Bills. Incredibly talented offense. But then you just fall apart. It's just kind of hard to see that and put them any higher. So, yeah, Ravens at number 4. Again, we know who this team is. I still believe that this could be one of the 2 teams from the AFC. Like, if I were to pick one or two teams from the AFC, I would probably still pick the Ravens to go. But they've got to stop choking games, man. It feels like a curse that's on them is that they keep choking games. Number 3, I got the Bills. Incredible comeback, but they were run all over. And again, the Ravens have a great, I almost said the Russians. The Ravens have a great rushing attack. So there's a little bit of grace for that with the Bills, but definitely got to figure out things on defense, but this offense is scary. Josh Allen, incredible quarterback. Excited to see the Bills. They're always a fun team to watch. Number 2, I have the Packers. They're just scary. They are a scary team. Their defensive line is incredible. Their defensive backs are great. Their linebackers get the job done. Jordan Love is very talented. Their wide receiver room is deep. Tucker Kraft is putting up production. They're just, yeah, I really can't say any negatives about the Packers. But at number 1, your reigning Super Bowl champions, the Philadelphia Eagles. I'm sorry, I'm not moving them from number 1 until they lose. The champs are the champs. We got to beat the champs before they can say that they're not number 1. In all seriousness, A.J. Brown is not going to average a catch a game for 8 yards. It's not going to happen. Saquon is going to break out. Devontae is going to continue to produce. Jalen's going to continue to be the guy. This offensive line is talented. Jalen Carter's going to come back, and our defense is going to be strong. I got faith in these birds, and I will not waver from that. All right, let's finish off the episode with talking about the matchups for this week. I will give my picks on who I think are going to win the games, and we will wrap it up from there. In the 1 p.m. game slots, we have the Jags versus the Bengals. I'm taking the Jags. The Bengals look flat. I think the Jags pull out a win. Giants versus Cowboys. Cowboys. I think that's a pretty simple one for most people. Simple one for me. Bears versus Lions. I think the Lions bounce back. I think that they prove that they are still a great team, and I think they beat the Bears in a division rival in the NFC North. Rams versus Titans. The Rams. Cam Ward is definitely starting his career off playing some very tough defenses, which will grow him. It'll make him better. But this Rams team is very talented. I don't think the Titans are going to be able to compete with them. Pats versus Dolphins. This is such an unwatchable game. I'll take the Dolphins. I think the Dolphins bounce back. They beat the Patriots. 49ers versus Saints. I'll take the 49ers. I think Mac Jones will still have some good production. They've got a lot of weapons. Christian McCaffrey is a great running back. And I don't really see the Saints being able to get past the 49ers defense. Bills versus Jets. I'll take the Bills. Hard to pick against the Bills. I do love this Jets team. I think it would be crazy if they do get an upset win, but yeah, I'll take the Bills. Seahawks versus Steelers. I'm going with the Steelers. I think they're going to have another strong week 2. Seahawks, I think, will continue to learn and improve, but I don't think that that'll happen this week. Browns versus Ravens. I'll take the Ravens. Pretty simple. I think that this team is going to come out with a fury and do some real damage in Cleveland. In the afternoon games, we have the Panthers versus the Cardinals. I'm going to take the Cardinals in this one. Again, the Panthers didn't look very strong. I think the Cardinals will be able to pull out a win, and then we'll see them play some better competition here in the next couple weeks and get a feel for who the Cardinals really are as a team. And then the marquee game for me, Eagles versus Chiefs in Arrowhead. And the Philadelphia Eagles are going to walk into Arrowhead and get another win. Guarantee it. I think it's going to be a big game. This is a Philadelphia Eagles team that loves to compete, and I think that they're going to compete, and I think that they're going to pull out a win. So that's my prediction. Sunday night, we have the Falcons versus the Vikings. I am taking the Falcons getting their first win of the season here. I do think that they are going to be able to beat the Vikings. I think with J.J. McCarthy still being young and inexperienced, which is not a knock on him. It's just a part of growing as a quarterback. I think that the Falcons are going to pull out a win and look good doing it. I think it'll be a good game, though. I'm hoping for a high-scoring game for sure. But I think the Falcons win. Monday night, we got a doubleheader. We got the Bucs versus the Texans. I'm taking the Bucs. The Texans just didn't show me enough to believe that they're going to beat this Bucs team, and I think that this Bucs team is a very good team. And then lastly, in a very late time slot, we got the Chargers versus the Raiders. I'm taking the Chargers. I think the Chargers are going to look real good this season. So, yeah, those are my picks for this week. Excited for another week of football. yeah, and to finish off the podcast episode, this was definitely a heavy week. It was a heavy week as an American. It was a heavy week as a Christian. Just seeing what's going on in our world. I don't think we should ever be surprised. Obviously they're shocked, but I don't think we should ever be surprised when we see the world remind us of what this world is. God sees all of this. And I think that this is a season of life for us as Christians, if you have a relationship with the Lord, where people are going to ask, if God is so good, how can he allow bad things to happen? I think a lot of people ask that question because evil doesn't make sense. And I think my thought has always been is, why do we blame God for our mistakes? Why do we blame God for our sin? Why do we blame God for the world's evil? Well, he's so powerful, he can stop it. Yeah, but he also loves you enough, he's going to give you free will. He's going to allow you to make the stupid decisions that you choose to make. But he also says that vengeance is his. He'll let people make stupid decisions, but don't think that they win. So, the Lord's got us. He's got us in our hand. The King is in control. I'm a firm believer in that. He is on the throne, and he's good. He's good even in these trying times. So, share your faith. Share your faith, guys. Share the love of Jesus. The world needs it. The world needs it. And these are the times where it is dark. These are the times when people will hear the gospel and it might just hit them in a new way. So share your faith. Share your faith at work, with your family, with your friends, with people you meet in the grocery store. Be an ambassador for Christ. So, yeah, let's close in a word of prayer. Father, I thank you for your goodness. I thank you that you love us and that you care about us. And God, you see everything that's going on in our world, Lord. You know our lives before they even happen. And Father, we just say that we trust you. We know that you're in control. We know that you love us and that you have a plan in everything that goes on, Lord, that you are the God that brings beauty from ashes, that you work all things together for the good of those who love you. So, Lord, we pray that you would get glory from these tragic situations, God, and that people would come to Christ because your love is made so apparent to them because of how dark these times are. And we just thank you for loving us first and sending your Son. In Jesus' name, amen. I love you guys. Thank you all so much for all the support. It's been really exciting just getting started with this podcast, and just can't wait to see what God does with it. Just want it to be a blessing to you. I pray it edifies you, that you are encouraged and enjoying the podcast. And yeah, I'll be hoping to do some I don't know what you would call it, but just have some guests on the show soon. I just got to figure out some things so that way I can make sure I get to do that, because I would love to have some people and to have some conversations as well. So yeah, with that being said, God bless you guys. Love y'all. Have a great weekend.